welcome to this online course.
This course is being offered absolutely free of cost to ensure that it reaches all those in need, irrespective of social and economic circumstances.
Also, through these courses, we want to achieve our vision to help and improve lives of 1 million people.
So please feel free to like and share the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Wish you all the very best and happy learning.
Now this is a basic diagram or a block diagram of a computer system. So it will also have input. The processing in the computer goes on in something called a CPU. The full form is Central Processing Unit. The input is converted into an output, and finally there is a feedback from output to input. And there is one more additional component, if you observe, which is called storage, which continuously talks with the central processing unit. So the input to the computer system or the CPU is given through something called input devices. CPU is the if you have seen a desktop, the main box which contains many components including the processor is called a central processing unit. Okay, so that is where the entire processing happens of the input given through input devices, and finally the output of this is given by the computer system through output devices. Okay, and this CPU is continuously talking to a storage system. There are again different types of storage devices or storages which are there in a computer system, which we will discuss further. Okay, and regularly as is there in any system, there is a feedback which goes from output to input. If you are the user of the computer system, based on the output it is giving, you will do the necessary changes to the input based on the feedback. Any computer system would definitely have certain hardware components and certain software components in order for it to work in the right way. When I say a computer system, it need not be only a desktop or a laptop. You can even take an example of a mobile phone. Even that is a system that also has all the components of a computer system. All right. So what are the different hardware components? All the things you can touch and feel in a computer system, like the monitor, the RAM, the mouse, the keyboard, anything which you can touch and feel, all those components will come under hardware. Is it only enough for a computer system to work? If you assemble all the hardware components together in the right way, do you think the system will work? Absolutely not. The next key thing which is required for a system to work properly is software. All the I would say the things which cannot be seen but still it is helping the system to run in the proper way is called a software. Alright, so let's first come to the different hardware which a computer system has. The first thing is input devices. So as explained during the introduction, the input to the CPU or the central processing unit of a computer system is given through certain devices or hardware devices called input devices. Next comes output devices. Once the processing of the input in the form of text, in the form of voice or image or any format, so it is taken inside the CPU or the processor, it processes and gives certain output. So the devices which gives output from the CPU or the computer system are called as output devices. There are again certain devices which act as both input as well as output devices. The image what you are seeing right now on the screen is that of a RAM, RAM, which stands for Random Access Memory. So what do you mean by primary storage? Whatever is required for that point of time to process is stored in some memory which is actually a temporary memory. This kind of memory is called as a primary storage. Next comes the secondary storage. Secondary storage devices or secondary storage is where the files are stored relatively permanently as compared to primary storage. what happens if you restart your computer? The data or the things which are stored in primary memory is refreshed, but secondary storage is a little different. It is not deleted or refreshed every time you restart your system. So these are stored relatively permanently and you can delete it whenever you want. What are the other hardware components which are there in a computer system? So now we have discussed input devices, output devices and storage devices, both primary as well as secondary. There are certain other hardware components in a computer system like these. So now this is called a motherboard. So all the RAM which was seen in the earlier slide will be fitted in this particular slot. So this is the main board where all the major components of a computer system is fitted. So this is a processor. So Intel is a company which gives a processor for computer systems. So this is a processor. So this is CD or DVD drive. Through this device you can actually read the data stored in a CD or a DVD, as well as write or record certain data on a CD or a DVD, which is a secondary storage device. Now this is something called a card reader. Nowadays there are memory cards also which comes as a secondary storage devices. So the data on the memory cards can be read or accessed using some devices called card readers, which look something like this. Let's now understand what is a system software. All those software which are required in order to run the system are called as system software. What I mean is, without these particular software, set of softwares, the system itself will not run. Okay. For instance, an operating system. You switch on a computer, the first thing you will see is a login screen where you will click and then give your password and log into the Windows system, right? So now that Windows is nothing but it's called a operating system. So now this is a system software. Without an operating system, you just cannot run the computer system itself. Some more examples. So if you are using a Apple phone, now there are many hardware components in it. There is a system software which is an operating system of Apple phone, right? So now the operating system is called as the system software. Android phones have Android as the operating system, which is a system software. Apple laptop will have Mac as the operating system. So all the different softwares which are mentioned on the screen right now, may it be Windows, Mac, Android, Symbian, Java, BlackBerry, iOS, all these are called as system software, which are basically required to run a computer system. Hope this is clear. So next let us move on to application software. Now that your system is up and running, you actually depend on certain software to perform most of your operations on a computer system. Like it can be a calculation, it can be writing a document, it can be creating a presentation, it can be sending an email. For all these tasks or activities, you depend on certain softwares which are called as application softwares. Examples of application softwares are right now mentioned on your or illustrated on your screen. The softwares like Mozilla Firefox. Now Mozilla Firefox is a browser. You open that browser, type in something and open any website, for example Google or Gmail or any website for that matter. Now Mozilla Firefox here is an application software. It's okay if you don't have Mozilla Firefox in your system, your system will still run. So that's why this is not this particular software doesn't come under the category of system software, but it comes under the category of application software. What are the other examples? Google Chrome, again a browser. Skype, through which we do a lot of video callings, etc. Antivirus softwares like Avast. Adobe Reader, through which we actually open protected PDF documents. Torrents, Notepad, VLC player, using which we open and access media files, Dropbox, any or even the games which we play on the computer system. All these software set of softwares are called as application softwares, which we use to perform a lot of different tasks on the computer system once we have logged on or opened the system using the system software. The different topics which we will be covering in this session are introduction to the basic terminology of MS Word, text formatting and alignment, headers and footers, tables, smart art and word art, borders and shading, page formatting, tracking changes in the document, and finally protecting the document. Let me tell you in the beginning itself, these are not the only options which are available in MS Word. MS Word being a evolved software, there are much more options which you can actually see or use in MS Word. But here, this being a computer fundamental session, we are covering all the basics which is required to understand and work on a MS Word software. Alright, so again this is going to be a practical session. So as usual, after the end of the session, please do a practical session on your desktop or laptop in order to understand all the concepts and topics which we have discussed in this session better. How will you open a Microsoft Word software? Similar to any other software like MS Paint or Calculator, either you can use the search bar and type Word. So this will open up. You can click on it and open the software, or else click on the start button, go to all programs. There will be a option of Microsoft Office. Okay, under Microsoft Office there will be many softwares, one of which is Microsoft Word. I am right now using Microsoft Word 2007 version to demonstrate the different features to you. So let me click on this. Now this opens a blank Word document. In this blank document you can do a lot of things. First of all, let me introduce you to the basic terminology, or what are the different things you are able to see on the screen right now. Now the button which you can see here is the Office button, which is actually like a file tab in other versions of MS Word. Here you can actually do a lot of stuff like opening a new document, saving in a different format, printing, etc. The small ribbon next to that is called as QAT, or Quick Access Toolbar. You can quickly save, undo, redo. All this stuff can be done using the Quick Access Toolbar. This space is known as the title bar, where right now document 1 hyphen Microsoft Word is written. This part of the screen is called as Windows control bar, where you can minimize, restore the screen size, or close the entire file. Now these are called as ribbons. There are different ribbons of home, insert, page layout, references, etc. Right now home tab is actually highlighted. Now this is called as a group of buttons. So this is a font group. All the actions related to font can be done using this particular group. Now this is paragraph group, and so on. There is a small button or icon which is shown on the bottom right of this group. Now this is a dialog box launcher. If I click on this, it will launch the dialog box specific to the group of buttons, that is font. Alright, the one which you can see on the left and left of the document is called as a ruler, and even this is a ruler on the top. Below what you can see is a status bar, where page 1 of 1, words, etc. are given. This is where you can set the layout of the page, and this is a zoomer, so you can either zoom out or zoom in the document however you want. Now this is a scroll bar using which you can scroll up or down the document. Hope the basic terminology when you open a Word document, which are the things you can see. So all the basic terminology is clear. So this is how you open a blank document. So let me start typing something right now just for the sake of demonstration. So if you open a Word document, it will mostly be used for creating a letter or creating a document, or even writing a letter, or probably you are writing a book for which you have to keep typing a lot of stuff, right? So basically a word processing document, as I already said. So let me start typing something just for the sake of demonstration. What I have done right now is I have simply started typing something on the screen. So I have typed communication is the transfer of information from one person to another. There is a spelling mistake here, I'll come to that later. If the intended and received message is the same, then it can be termed as effective communication, otherwise the communication becomes ineffective. First of all, let us understand the what was the session plan. Based on the session plan, let us go text formatting and alignment. Now default it has taken a font which is Calibri body and the font size is 11. So if you want to say, for example, increase the font size, select everything. You can change the font family if you want, like I want to use Times New Roman, and you can increase or decrease the font size. You can also increase or decrease the font size using this particular button, right? So once this is done, so this is the basic font or else text formatting. So you can also make it bold, italics, underlined if you want. If you uncheck it, again it comes back. The shortcut for these things, if you just hover your mouse button on any one of the options, it will show the shortcut. For instance, for making something bold, so I can select this particular term, go on this, it says Control B is the shortcut for making bold. You can just type select Control and type B, and it will bold the particular text which was selected. So this is about text formatting. Alright, so how to correct the spelling errors? Simple, go on the error which it is showing, right click, and it will show the what is the probable word. So another, I'll just click on it and it changes. Otherwise, what is the issue? It was not showing in a red underline but a blue one. So it says there is no spelling error but some minor error, which is you should not give a space between other and wise. So you can select that. So now this is how you do a basic text formatting. Now if you see and the both these words are not in the same line. If you see and is a little inside, THE, now the end of E is a little outside. Now this is called as alignment. How to make this alignment correct? Just select the entire text. Now if you see in the paragraph group, the left align button is highlighted. That means the entire text is left aligned. If you want to make it center aligned, you can click on this. The shortcut is Control E, otherwise you can directly click on this button. Now it is center aligned, right aligned. If you want to make it justified, you can click on this. Now if you see, exactly the letter D in the first line and E in the second line are in one line. Now this is called as justified alignment. So this is how you align text. So what we have completed till now is the introduction to terminology and text formatting and alignment. Let us now come to headers and footers. So if you want to put a header, say for example in this document, just go to insert, header. There will be different options or different types of headers which this particular option will give you. You can select the header, the type of header you want, and then you can type the document name or whatever you want in the header. I'll say communication. Okay, let me delete the other things. It should just say communication for me. and you can pick a date, or if you don't want anything, you can even type something. You can say type your name, author name. Right? So once everything is done, you can click outside. You can double click outside and it will take that particular effect. Okay, understood? So now this is how you insert a header. Similar way you can insert a footer also. Right now there is no footer. You can insert, go to insert, click on footer, and you can select a type of footer you want. Because I have selected a maroon colored header, I'll select the similar kind of footer here, which gives the page number. Or you can select anything you want. So I'll select this one because it suits with my header, and I don't want anything because I've already entered everything. So I'll just delete all the other things. I just want the page number. Now this is how you insert a footer. So once this is inserted, if you even go to the next page, the headers and footers will automatically take the place, and the page number will keep increasing. Alright, so this is how you insert headers and footers. Next, let us come to tables. So if you want to insert a table after this particular paragraph, just click on insert. If you click on this, it will show you a complete a row and a column cell, where you can actually select the number of rows and columns you want for the table. For instance, I am selecting 4x4 table, and you can start typing inside the table very easily. Say serial number, particulars, and so on and so forth. So this is how you insert a table. For formatting text or whatever content is there in the table, it's very similar to text formatting. You can select the text and then make it bold, alignment, font family, font size, anything you want you can do in exactly the same way you have done for a font. You have done for the other text outside the particular table. Alright, next let's go to smart art and word art. So if you want to insert some graphics, Word gives a beautiful option of inserting a smart art. If you click on insert and then smart art, it will give you a lot of options. You can select the art style which you want. Say for example, I want something like this. If I can just select this basic circle and say okay. Okay, now this is how it opens up. Here you can enter whatever you want inside the boxes, and so on. So this is how you insert a smart art. Alright, so you might have seen documents where the graphics are very professional. See, Windows or Word by default gives you these kind of options where you can insert professional looking graphics. So this is how you insert smart art. In case you want to insert word art, say for example you want a heading before this which says communication in a different style. So go to insert, click on word art, select the type of styling you want, and you enter whatever you want. So it throws up a word art. Now again, if you want to align this, you can just go to home and you can center line the same. So now this is how you enter word art. So we have now covered word art, smart art, header, footer, inserting page numbers, and text formatting, basic text formatting and alignment in Word. So next, let's go to borders and shading. Now for example, if you want to create a border for the whole of this page, just go to page layout. There is something called page background, group of actions which are there. You can just select on or click on page borders. You can select the kind of border you want. For example, right now it is the none is highlighted. If you want a box kind of a border, select that. What is the style of lines you want? Select that particular style which you want, and finally, so it applies to whole document, and then say OK. Now this is how you insert a border for your page. So I'll again show you. If you want to change this also, you can do it. Again, same with shading. If you want any kind of shading, if you want, all these options will be here: borders, page border, shading, all these options will be available in page background group and page borders. You can even give a different color. So right now there is no color, you can give a different color to the page as well, right? Okay, what if you want to insert a watermark? We might have seen in many documents, just to ensure that the document cannot be easily copied by anyone else, there is a watermark which can be inserted. So click on this, you can click on the style of watermark you want and just select that. So now it is showing confidential in the background, right? So that is how you insert a watermark. So let me remove the color to show you. Okay, now you can see there is a watermark in the background. This is how you add a watermark in your document. Okay, now let me quickly come back to the session plan. Next is page formatting. Alright, so what if you don't want to create your document in A4 size sheet, you want something else? Okay, again in the page layout there is something called page setup group. Here you can select the orientation. Right now it is portrait, you can select a landscape orientation also, right? Or even you can select the size of the letter. Default it is selected as A4, you can select the size of the letter. If you want 2 columns, for instance, similar to something which comes in a newspaper, so there are different columns. Right now it is only single column, you can make it 2 columns as well. So let me show it in this particular text. So this entire thing is coming in single column. If I want to make it 2 columns, you can just select this and it will divide the same into 2 columns, right? So this is how you do page setup or page formatting. Next, let me go to something called track changes. Say for instance you are writing a book and you have given the same soft copy of that particular book in Word format to someone to proofread. He or she has done some changes, and how will he do it? So in normal printed document, he or she might probably circle some word, strike it off, write something else. So this is how documents are corrected, right? So again here Word gives a very nice option to do all the kind of track all the kind of changes which has been made to the document. So you just have to go to review tab, click on track changes and again select track changes. Now the document is in track change mode. Say for example if I have sent this document to someone to do corrections, if he or she says ineffective is not the right word and they delete it, actually it is not getting deleted, but it is showing in a striked out form. So just to say that this is the change which that person had done, and he say for example write some other word. Now that is typed, but it is showing in a different font and a underline. It says that that person has deleted this particular word and added something else. Once the changes are done based on track changes or observing the changes which have been done, you can choose to either accept the changes or reject it. Alright, so this was about track change mode which can be used. So I have removed the track change mode. Now it will take the normal effect, right? Okay, this is about track changes. So finally we come to protecting a document. Now that you have created this entire document, what if you want to protect it from people whom you don't want to read it? Okay, so you can do it using a password. So before that, how do you save this document in a normal case? Either you press Ctrl S or go to this particular button, click on save, or save as to save it in a different format. Right now I am just clicking on save. It will ask which location in your computer system should I save. So I'll just select desktop, give the name as Word illustration and say save. Okay, now once this is saved, you can see the title bar. The document 1 has now changed to Word illustration. This shows that the document is now saved. If you now do any changes, you can directly click on this particular button or Ctrl S to keep saving in the same location. Okay, now what if I close this document, and if I again want to open it, it's very simple to open, right? You can just go to the the place where the document is saved and double click on the document, and the document opens. Now let us use a small feature of protecting the document. Now what I'll do, I'll use a password to protect the document. So what I'll do, I'll just click on the office button, go to prepare, and there is an option called encrypt document. I'll just select this. Now it is asking me for a password, so let me give some test password. Okay, it asks to re-enter. Alright, now the document is protected. Let us now see what happens if I close this document. Yes, I want to save the changes, and again I want to open the same document. Now if I double click on the same document, even before it opens or shows me anything, it is asking me for a password. If I type the right password, it will take me inside the file. Right, so this was about protecting the Word document. Okay, now I am sure you have understood a lot about Microsoft Word and basic document creation. So this was about the basics of Microsoft Word. I am sure you can use it for a lot of things or lot of activities of your day-to-day life. Start working on it, use the different options. The basics have been covered. Start exploring more and more to understand Microsoft Word better. Hope this was interesting. See you all in the next session. Let's understand what all things we are going to learn in this session of Microsoft Excel. We'll start with introduction to basic terminology, rows, columns and tables, working with formula, logical functions, maths and trigonometric functions, some of the statistical functions. We'll get into VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, filtering of data, freezing panes, and finally pivot table. So this is the session plan for Microsoft Excel. This again is going to be a practical session, so I'll quickly go on to my desktop and open an Excel file. So you know how to open a blank Excel file. Either you'll type Excel in the search bar or go to start button, all programs, Microsoft Office, then select MS Excel. So what I have done for this session is I have created a demo file. I am directly opening by double clicking this MS Excel demo file. So once you open this file, a blank MS Excel file looks something like this. So unlike Microsoft Word, which looks like a blank A4 sheet, MS Excel is filled with rows and columns. Alright, so the basic terminology remains the same. So this is the Office button or File button in other version of Microsoft Office. This is called a Quick Access Toolbar, Windows Control Toolbar, Ribbon, different tabs. Right now we are in the Home tab, Insert, Page Layout, Formula, etc. These are groups. This is a font group. All other things remains the same. Now the basic differences. So there is a status bar, page layouts, zoom, and scroll bar. All these are there. The basic differences, instead of a ruler, here you can see numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 and ABCD. Now these are rows and columns. All the alphabets represents columns and all the numbers represents rows, right? So Excel being a software basically used for number crunching, it's you can imagine Excel to be a blank table to start with. So you can put anything you want in this particular blank table. So if you select this particular cell, now this is called a cell. You can see here it is showing which cell your cursor is right now on. So now we are on A1. So if you click here, it changes to G12, right? So G is the column, 12 is the row. So that's why it goes. It shows that as G12. So these are called cells. There are huge number of rows and columns. If you see, there are more than 10 lakh rows and more than lakhs of columns in an Excel sheet, so that you can work on huge amount of data. People ask me, why is an Excel required? So Excel is definitely required. Even if you are in finance, for instance, you are working on some ERP software like SAP or Oracle or even Tally, these kind of softwares will only give you a data dump. Okay, so once you get the dump, in order to make that data usable or understandable, you definitely have to do a lot of stuff on that particular data. So usually this data is taken in an Excel format, and then we do a lot of work on this data in terms of understanding this data and making it as a presentable data. All right, so this is about basics of Excel. Let me quickly go to the session plan and see what all we have to cover. So introduction to terminology, as I said, it's similar to Word, rows, columns and tables. So how do you create a table? It's a very simple thing. If you want to create a table, start typing whatever you want. Like if you want serial number, particulars, amount, anything you want. So start typing. So Excel gives you some of the features, like if you have typed 1 and 2, if you select both, and there is a small dot which you can see on the bottom right. If you go there, the cursor turns to square or plus. You can click and drag and it will give you a series. Now if you have typed 1 and 2, it will automatically take you to 3 and 4. So these are the kind of features which Excel gives. Now see, if you see particulars, it is not aligned properly. To align, you can just double click on the line right next to B and it will be sorted. So if everything is not aligned, something like this, you can use a shortcut. If you click here, the entire sheet will be selected. Once you click on it, everything will be aligned. All right, so this is how you create a table. You can just select the entire table, just draw a border, or else you can also use format as table and use any of the formats which have been default given in Microsoft Excel. So this is how you create a table in Microsoft Excel. So next, let's go to working with formula. So whenever you want to put a formula, let us go to function sheet. So what I have done, I have created 3 sheets for the ease of demonstration. Whatever formula, so now this is a table as I've showed you in the first sheet. Now this is also a table. If you the format of typing any formula is, wherever you want the value to come, you have to start with is equal to, and now if you want to add up or you want to see the sum of the units sold, you can start typing SUM. Now once you start typing, what all functions are actually there in that particular spelling are actually listed down. So currently we are doing sum, so you can see sum, so you can either select that or you can type manually. I'll open a small bracket, I'll select the entire range. Now I'll drag and select the entire range, close the bracket and then enter. Now this will give you the sum. So this is how you work with formula. You start with is equal to, then open bracket and then write the function, open the bracket and then do whatever you are supposed to do with that function. For instance, say here you want to see the total revenue. Okay, now how to make it in the same format? So you can select this column, there is something called a format painter, click on that and click on this particular column. So the entire thing, only the format is copied, not the values. Also in Excel, one thing you have to observe is, though this is 713, if you click on this, the value is 713. If you see the formula bar, it shows the formula. Even when you copy and paste in Word, usually the content is copied. In Excel, only the formula will be copied. So I'll show you an example. So if you want to get the revenue here, you can start with is equal to. Now we have to multiply two things, sales price and units sold. So click on sales price, that is F2, and next you can type into, then G2, then you can press enter. Now this is giving you some value. So it is 0.84. You don't want decimal points, so you can increase or decrease the decimal points using these buttons. So I'll reduce it to 0. Now if I copy this, either Control C or right click and copy and select the other cells and paste, if you see the value will not be pasted, but the formula will be pasted, and the formula will actually move along with the rows. So initially the formula was, if you observe here, F2 into G2, the next, the below row, it is F3 into G3, F4 into G4, similarly it continues. Alright, so either you can do that, or as I showed in the initial demonstration, you can go to this particular place where the cursor will turn into plus, then drag the same formula. It will again copy the formula, not the content. Alright, so this was about working with formulas. Okay, so now let me come to some of the mathematical and trigonometric functions. Functions are nothing but formulas, some statistical functions and some logical functions. The first mathematical function or trigonometric function is sum, so which we already did. I'll just do it again for the sake of understanding. Is equal to sum, open bracket, select the range of which you want the sum, close bracket, and enter. Okay, so now this will give the sum of this entire range. Okay, what is SUMIF? SUMIF is a mixture of mathematical and logical function, if you ask me. So this is add only if some condition is satisfied. So let's see how to write this function. Is equal to SUMIF, open bracket. Okay, now I'll select this entire range from the company till, okay, till the, okay, let me select till the units sold. Alright, now the criteria is, say you just want to know the total units sold of Nokia products. So I'll select this as the criteria, again put a comma. So whatever you have to put, so that will be highlighted. So you have to now give the sum range. So what is the sum you want, you are expecting? You want the sum of the units sold. So select this entire range. Then close the bracket and enter. Now this will give, see, the total units sold is 713, but 309 units of only the Nokia brand is sold. If you select only the Nokia unit sold, okay, now if you see, I have only selected the unit sold for Nokia, you can see that the sum is 309, which is matching with this particular value. So SUMIF is a function which is used to do the sum of a particular range which satisfies a certain criteria, right? So now let us quickly go to round. Round is nothing but if you want to round off a particular number. So let me, okay, now this value was 7000.76. So let me use this function of round and open bracket. Now it says which number. So I want F2 to be rounded off number of digits. So let's say I want 1 decimal place, and if I close bracket and enter, now it shows, I think it was this was selected to 2 decimal points. If I'm rounding it off to 1, it shows 7000.8, right? So now that is the function of round. Very similar to that, round up and round down, whether you want it to be rounded off upwards or downwards. Okay, round up, let me say the same number, I say 1 digit, and it has to be rounded off on the upper side. It will again be 7000.8. If I say round down, the same number, comma, 1 digit, it will obviously say 7000.7, because I am saying please round down 1 digit, right? So now this is the function of round up and round down. SQRT is nothing but square root. So you just put start the function by equal to SQRT, open bracket, select the number. So if you want square root of, say, this particular cell, you can enter and it will give you the square root. Or else if you just want SQRT of 25, answer is going to be 5. So these are some of the very, very basic maths and trigonometric functions which we have discussed. Next, let me come to some of the statistical functions. If you want to see the average, it's very simple. AVER AGE, open bracket. Now you can select the range. What is the average number of units sold? Select the range, close bracket and enter. Now it will show you the average. You can always set the number of decimal points to whatever number you want. Okay. So max, which is the maximum number of a particular range, max, open bracket, select the range and enter. Okay, so in this range, apart from this particular number, the maximum number is 97. Is it right? Yes, 97 is the maximum number. Similarly, minimum, MIN stands for minimum of a range. So minimum number is 9. Okay, what is large? So let us see how large works. LARGE, open bracket. Now it is saying array and k. So let me select this entire array or range and then give 1. So it says the first highest number in that range is of course 97. Now if I give, instead of 1, if I give 2, it will show me the second highest number. What is the second highest number? It is 78. Similar to large is a function called small. Type small, open bracket, select the range, comma 1 if you say it is the smallest number, which is 9, 2 is the second smallest number, which is 12, right? Rank, if you want to rank a particular range in a way, you can use the function of rank, open bracket, which is the number you want to rank. Say for example 97. 97 is very clearly in this range, it is the first rank, right? So let's see, comma, in this particular range, let me select the entire thing. So in this particular range, order, either you want ascending or descending. 97, if I use descending order, then the rank will be 15. If I use 0 stands for descending order. So if I use descending order, then it will have first rank, right? So I can just type F2 or double click to edit the formula. Instead of G12, if I am using any other cell, say for instance 73, now it will show which rank that particular number takes in the whole of the range you have selected, right? So this is about rank, or now we have covered very basic statistical functions used in Excel. Now let me come to one basic logical function, which is if. As I said, SUMIF is also a combination of mathematical and logical function of if. I am only talking about if right now. How is if function written? Is equal to if. Now when you open bracket, it says logical test. Now if you have to say if a logical test, first you have to give a logical test, then comma you have to give what it has to do if the logical test is true, comma what it has to do if the logical test is false. Say for instance, if I say if this cell C2 equal to, because it is text, I'll put in double quotes NOKIA double quotes, comma. Now this is the logical test. If C2 is equal to Nokia, then say yes, comma, otherwise say no. Now I'll close the bracket and enter. It has to say yes because that particular cell says Nokia. Let's see. Now it is saying yes. So now if I, instead of C2, I make it as C4. C4. What is C4? C4 is LG. So now it has to say no. Now this is called, now it is saying no. So this is a logical function of if, where you are giving a logical test and then saying if the logical test is cleared, what Excel has to do, and if it is not clear, what is the value Excel has to give. So this is about basic functions which are used in Excel. Okay, we have covered till logical, maths and trigonometric and statistical functions. Now let us get into VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. Okay, let's go to the next sheet. So again, here there is a table of customer ID, customer name, order date, product, location, delivery status and so on. Okay, so you can have any format of data in a particular cell. For instance, this is in date format, that's why it is 13/3/2017. Now this is general format, this is text format. Like this you can have a lot of variety of data. How can you see that? You can just select a cell, right click, go to format cells. Now here a number of options will be shown where you can actually set the format of the cell. Right now it is in general, so here also you can see. So this is also here also it is showing it is in general. Okay, so if you click here, it is showing it is in date format. So right click, format cells. There are a huge number of options here. You can have a number format, currency format, rupees, dollar, pound, anything you want. Accounting format, state, time, percentage. Again in date there are variety of formats, so whatever you want you can select. Okay, now this is a table. So now let's get into VLOOKUP or vertical lookup. VLOOKUP stands for vertical lookup. See, if I select this particular cell, or okay, let me get into customer ID now. So here the customer ID is P091718. So if I click here, there is a small button and it's showing a drop down. So how I have done it is, this is known as a data validation. So let me select that cell, go into data tab, get into data validation. So what I have done, I have just in the settings said please allow a list, not any value, not whole number, please allow a list, and I have selected the sources from customer ID. If you see A2 to A11, so I have selected the entire source. So it allows the user to select only the data within that particular source which is put in the data validation. So if I select any other thing instead of P0291718, if I select some other thing, you can observe that the name, order date, product, location, everything is changing. So how does that happen? Let me click on Robert Peter. Now observe the formula. I have used something called VLOOKUP. So how this formula works is, so I'll start the function with equal to, similar to any other thing. So let me type equal to, so open equal to VLOOKUP, open bracket, lookup value. So I say please look up this particular value, comma, that is in, which is the table I have to look in. Okay, please look in this entire table, comma. Okay, now if I get that value, what I have to do? So now please look in the customer name, that is the this is first, this is second, so second column, comma. Now it is saying you can say either 1 or 0. I'm putting 0. 0 means it is exact match, 1 means approximate match. Let me get into that little bit later. So if I do this and say enter, now it is showing. So for this particular customer ID, the name is Robert Peter. Similar to that, I have put VLOOKUP for all the other cells. So that is how this works. VLOOKUP simply looks a particular value in a vertical table. If it gets that particular value in the first column, then we say please give the value of the respective whatever the number of column is. If you want the respective value in the third column or fourth column, please return that value, and whether it has to be a accurate match or approximate match. Here we said if you are selecting 0, it means accurate match. If it is exactly the same, then it will return whatever is there in the second cell. In the third case, what it does is it will give whatever is there in the third column. So it is looking up in this column. Now it finds this, and because it finds the exact match, it will see the third column 1, 2, 3 and returns 17/3/2017 as the value. So this is the function of vertical lookup. This becomes very useful when again we are working on a huge data, because it's never possible to manually look in the entire table and find out what you are looking for. So what we do is use a function called VLOOKUP. Vertical horizontal lookup is exactly the same, just that instead of looking vertically, we'll look horizontally. You can see there is the same table in a different format. So it is in a vertical format. I have just put in horizontal format, and I've used something called HLOOKUP. So what does it say? If I double click HLOOKUP I10, so this is the value it will look up in this entire table. Table array is I1 to R2. Okay, so this is the table array, and it will look up, if this value is obtained, it will go to the second row instead of column, and that respective value will be returned. So where is this particular value? If you see P041718, it gets the value, it goes to the second column. Surajit Sen is the value which it returns in the cell where the HLOOKUP formula has been put. Clear? So this is about VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. So I was talking something about exact match and approximate match. So let me just give you one example for you to understand what is that. So if you see here in the grade, I have again put a VLOOKUP formula. If you double click on it, it says VLOOKUP B17, which is B17. So this one 45. So VLOOKUP this value in which is the table, in this table. So I am saying E17 to F20. So this is the table. Now if it finds the value, it has to return the second column value, comma 1. Now I am saying don't look for the exact match, go for approximate match. So if you see 45 is not there, but which is the value nearest to 45? Okay, so this. So now it returns something, the value in the nearest match, which is C. Now this is about approximate match or nearest match. The same thing has been done for all the columns. If you see 72, the nearest to 72 is B, so that's why it's returning B. Now 92, of course, the nearest is A, so that's why it's returning value as A. This is called VLOOKUP using approximate match scenario and exact match scenario. Now let's get into the last section in Microsoft Excel, which is pivot table. So say for example you have some data like this, but whenever you are going to okay, now these Rajat, Kunal, Tony, these are your team members working in different cities, selling different products. The number of customers is mentioned here in this table, and net sales. If you want to go and present this data to someone, if you want to go and present this data to general manager or CEO of a company, you can't take this raw data and go, right? So you want some summary of it. So for these kind of situations, you use something called pivot table. Click on any part of the table, just click on insert and pivot table. So now it will ask you for the range. Because you are keeping your cursor in the table, it is selecting the right range. It says whether I have to open the pivot table in the same sheet or new. I just say new worksheet and I say OK. So what it does is, in a new sheet there is a pivot table which is formed. A small table is there without any data, and on the right side all the table headings are mentioned. So now what I'll do, I want data by salesman and product. Say for example, what I'll do, I'll select salesman and put in row labels, select product, put in column labels, and values of products I put in values. What happens is, okay, so Kunal, Rajat and Tony have sold grand total of, for example, Kunal has sold total of 9 products, 3 keyboards, 3 monitors, 3 mouse, etc. If you want to add a filter, you can just select, say for example, city, and you want to add it in filter. So I'll just select and put it here in report filter. So what happens now, all is selected. You can only select Kolkata for example and say OK. Now it filters the data based on that. Is it useful? Yes, absolutely. It's very useful to summarize the data based on whatever you want. Now this is called pivot table. Same, whenever you are putting a pivot table, you can also go for a pivot chart. Just click on pivot chart, say what kind of chart you want and say OK. It will also give you a chart based on the pivot table which is mentioned. So putting a chart is very simple. I have just shown you a pivot chart. Even otherwise, if you have say if you have a data, you just have to put a chart now you have to see, you can select the data whatever you want, insert and click on the kind of chart you want to put, and the chart will be ready for you. So this is how you can put a chart in Excel, right? So we have completed pivot table. Pivot table is something like this, pivot chart, and putting chart for any kind of data you are supposed to you want to put a chart for. Okay, now what if this data was not only this much and it was really big? Say for example, I'll just copy this data and paste it down. Say it was still longer. Now what happens is, if you see, as I drag this particular scroll bar, the title is actually missing. Now you don't know what this number represents, right? Because the heading is not very clear. So for these cases, you can do something called freeze panes. So what you want to do is you want to freeze this top row, and if you drag, all the others should come down but the top row. How to do that? Just click on view. There is an option called freeze panes. Click on that. You can say freeze top row. So what happens now is, if you drag, the top row is frozen and it will drag only the bottom value. So this is how you can use the freeze panes option. You can unfreeze panes. Okay, if similarly, if the data is large on this side also, you can say, for example, select wherever cell you want to freeze, click on this and just say freeze panes. Now both the top row and the first column is freezed. If you drag, it will not move, all the other data will move. Clear? So this is the option of freeze panes. If I want to filter this data, select the top row, just go to data and click on filter. So now what you can do is, you can filter any column you want in any which ways you want to filter it. Say for instance, in the city, instead of all the three, you just want to look at the data of Delhi, you can select Delhi and say OK. Now the other data are not deleted, but it is just hidden so that you can see only Delhi. So you can again click on city, select all, then say OK, your entire data is still there. In numbers also you can do a lot of filtering thing. Either you can select one by one, or you can say arrange it from smallest to largest or largest to smallest. So it will just rearrange it. So now this is called sorting. You can also, if the date is there, you can also click, say, in the date filters, before or after. Okay, you want the dates after a certain date, before a certain date, in between certain date, all those kind of filtering and sorting you can do using the option called filter. If you want to remove, you just go to data, the filter is highlighted, click on it once and the filter is removed. In the basic Excel, we have covered all the things which we have shown in the session plan. Hope this was very interesting. I am sure you will do a lot of practice after this session, going back to your own system. In these sessions, I keep telling, because this being a technical session, if the practice is something very, very important. If you don't practice, though you feel everything is very easy when you are seeing a demonstration or an illustration, when you go back to your actual work, it becomes difficult. You will not find where that particular option is. So please practice as much as possible. As I said, this is basics of Excel. There are much more functions and features which you can use. Keep practicing, keep exploring, so that you can master Microsoft Excel. See you soon in the next session. Microsoft PowerPoint is a software in the MS Office package which is used to create presentations. In our work life, we need to create a lot of presentations, may it be for the team meeting, may it be for the board members review, monthly meeting, review meetings, so on and so forth. It becomes a normal thing for us to create presentations. And what better software can you use than MS PowerPoint to create those presentations? So let us understand this particular software in a little bit of more detail. The session plan is going to be like this. First of all, we'll understand the terminology, basic terminology. Then we'll get into creating presentations. We'll understand a little bit of creating animations within the presentation and how to create a slideshow. Now let me go to my desktop in order to show you how you can work on a presentation. Similar to any other software, the way of opening a new file in MS PowerPoint is either you can click here, search for PowerPoint, or you can click on the start button, go to all programs, look for MS Office package. Okay, so once you get MS Office, in that you have to go for Microsoft PowerPoint. Right now I am using the 2007 version, as I have explained earlier also. So when you open a blank presentation, it looks something like this. So it will have a opening slide. This is the slides view, and this is how the slide will look. So the basic terminology is still the same. So as similar to Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel, all the things like quick access toolbar, the office button or the file button, title bar, control bar, ribbons, zoom panel, view setter, all these things will be the same. The only difference is this: here you can actually see the slides which you are preparing in a small zoomed out version, and here you can see the slide which is highlighted. Here there is a place where you can add notes, and this is for the presenter. This will not be displayed on the screen, but the presenter can actually see what are the notes and he can refer to it. Now this is about the basic terminology of MS PowerPoint. Getting into how to create a presentation. So you can either start with a blank slide like this and start typing the for instance the heading, subtitle, and so on. To create a or to insert a new slide, what you have to click, you can click on this particular button, new slide. Now a new slide appears. As you can see, the slide itself is having a different format. Here it was heading and subheading. Now it is heading is at the top, and the bottom it is all the bullet points. So you can say or type the heading, and your points you can keep on typing in the space which is provided for the bullet points. Now, so this looks very ordinary, right? So what you can do, PowerPoint gives a lot of beautiful templates as a default, so you can actually use a template which looks nice instead of going for a blank slide. So how you can do that is, you can go to insert, or you can go to design, because we are inserting templates, and here you can see a lot of themes, right? So you can select a theme which you want, so that it gets applied to your presentation. So if you can see, based on the theme you have selected, the font, the color of the font, the size, everything is auto set. So why this can be used is, it actually takes care of most of our headaches. So usually in PowerPoint presentations we say every slide should have the same size and font of the heading, same with the body, everything. So all these things are taken care. In themes, based on the color theme which is there, the color of the font and size of the font is selected to suit that particular theme. So most of the issue of handling these things is resolved. If you want, again, if you can actually do a little bit of editing if you want in the theme also. For instance, I wanted it in the center of the slide instead of top. So what I did is I brought it to the center. Now I am changing the alignment. So these kind of things can anyways be done even in a themed presentation. So this is how you create a presentation. So once your presentation is ready, most of us would want to insert a little bit of animations in it. Say for example, the heading has to come first and then the presented by, something like that. For that you can actually click on the animations tab, select which particular text or content you want to animate. Here you can see it is selected as no animation. So if you now select custom animation, it will ask you to add effect. Now I would say add effect, entrance. So it should, see, this is one kind of a animation effect which I am adding. It should enter like a blind, right? Or you can say checkerboard. Okay, now this is the effect of a checkerboard. So like this you can select. Now what has happened is there are two text in this particular slide. It is showing a number 1 and 2. That is, the heading will come first and then the, okay, sorry, it has changed, so let me change it to, you want animation for even this, you can add effect, entrance, some other effect you want to give. So now this is how you give. If you don't want this, you can just click on it and remove the effect. Now what has happened is only two things is there, one is the heading and one is the presentation. Is it right? Let us check it out. If you play here, it will actually show you how it will appear. Clear? So this is how you add animation to your particular presentation. Alright, so once you have created your presentation and you have added a little bit of animation to it, so let's now understand how to create a slideshow. Okay, so, creating slideshow is very simple. So either you can, so once your presentation is done, the way to save is very simple, similar to MS Word or Excel. Either you can click on the office button, click on save, or Control S. You can select the location where you want to save your particular presentation, give the name for the particular file and then save it. So right now I am saving it in desktop for easy access. So once you select the location, just give the heading, or title of the presentation and save. So now you can see instead of presentation 3, it changes to the name which we have given. That is how you know that your presentation is saved. In order to start the slideshow from the beginning, you can either click here or slideshow and from beginning, or also you can type F5 on your keyboard. Now if you do that, it will start the presentation. Now if you either use a mouse click or the right arrow key, it will take the same effect, and one by one the animation which you have given will start appearing on the screen. So heading, we had given an animation of checkerboard and presented by as a simple appear. So that is how the animation comes, and if you click next, it will take you to the next slide. Because we had not put any kind of animation here, the heading and the bullet points, everything is shown in one shot. Again if you click next, it will end the slideshow. So this is how you create slideshows. In slideshow, even if you want to record a narration, you can do that as well. So instead of right now what I am doing, I am using a PowerPoint presentation, presenting it live and recording my voice, right? So instead of that, you can actually record your entire presentation and then save your voice also in the recording. So how you can do that is, instead of simply save, you can click on save as, and you can save as a, if you click on okay, PowerPoint show. So if you save as a PowerPoint show, if you double click on that file, it will directly open the slideshow and start playing including your recording. So that's how you can do a lot of more stuff in a PowerPoint presentation. But basically what you will prepare is a presentation using some of the theme, add a little bit of animation, don't make it too much of an animation because it doesn't look professional. So once you are done with your animation, you can go to the slideshow and play your presentation. Along with that, you can start describing what are the content of the presentation. Hope this MS PowerPoint is clear to you. It is very, very simple. Once you have understood MS Word, MS Excel, PowerPoint is not very complicated. It's very simple. Basic terminology remains the same. It is basically used to create presentations. Once you create the presentation, you can save the file either in the PPT format or a slideshow format, and you can use it for your day-to-day presentations. The topics for this session would be creating an email account, email software. So email software, I'll actually talk about Outlook again, which is a part of a MS Office package to manage your emails. Then we'll understand about composing, sending, receiving email, and a little bit of email management. Okay, let me go to my desktop. So how to create an email? So if I open a browser, so right now what I'll do, I'll just go to gmail.com. See, email IDs can be created in any particular domain. For instance, you can have, if you have a domain called yourname.com, there can be an email saying name@yourname.com. okay, so right now I'm just showing how to create one typical email ID in Gmail. Okay, now these are some of the accounts which I use. So let me click on use another account, more options, and create an account. So if you do not have an email account, you can click on create account, come to this particular page, enter all the details, your first name, last name, what is the email ID you want at gmail.com, and you can create and confirm your password, give your birth date and all the other information which it's asking for. If you have an email, you can give your current email address and click on next to create an email. So once you create an email, you can go to Gmail, click on sign in. I'll just open my email account for the sake of illustration. So you can type in your email ID and your password. If you give the right email ID and password, obviously it will log in to your particular email account. Now the Gmail looks something like this. So it will have a search bar to search the emails. On the top right, it's all about your particular profile management. You can create your photograph, you can change your display name. Okay, now display name is what is shown to the receiver. Your email ID is this. My email ID is arun.kottalgi@gmail.com, but my display name is capital ARUN space capital K Kottalgi. So all these things, including the profile picture, etc., can be, and other settings can be managed in this particular link. Okay, now there are three main tabs called primary, social, and promotions. So this is a feature given by Google. So all the primary emails will be in one tab, all the social, that is related to your social media, will be in the other tab, and promotions. Many companies keep sending a promotional emails. When Google recognizes it to be promotion, it goes under the promotions tab. Right now we are in inbox. Inbox is where all your emails will come and sit. You can star some emails. For instance, if this particular email looks like an important email to me, I can click on this. Now this is a starred email. When I click on starred, all my starred emails will be shown to me. It is just a method of managing your emails. So if it is not important, I can just click here and uncheck it. Similarly, if anything is important, I can click on this to say that this particular email is very important to me. Right? So if a new email has come which I have not read, it will be shown something like this. Okay, so if I click on this email, I can go inside it and read the content of the email. So this is about receiving the email and reading it, and the different folders. So now I am in inbox. If you have sent some email, it will be shown in sent mail. If you have created some drafts and you have not yet sent it, it will be in drafts. All the important mails will be there. Again, you can create much more folders you want in order to manage your email. So how will you compose compose a new email and send it? Just click on this button called compose. Now you should know the email address of the receiver whom you want to send an email to. So you will type the email address. Okay, so right now what I am doing, I am typing my own email address. You can click on CC and BCC if you want. CC is called as carbon copy, BCC is blind carbon copy. So CC, it is like sending an email to inform. It is not to take action but to inform. BCC is something where you are sending it completely in a stealth mode. So you can also put people in CC and BCC if you want. Type the subject line and the body of the email and send it. So what you can see here is called a signature. I have made it as a default signature. So you can also create the default signature by going to settings. If you click on send, right now it showed in draft and again it went off. So what it meant is it was in the draft for some time and finally it was sent. If you click on the sent mail, you can see that there as well as in inbox because it is sent to myself, right? So this is how you send an email. Many of the settings, as I said, can be made by going to settings. Settings like creating a signature, how much mail should be shown, how much folder should be created, many more things. Your picture, many things can be created using this particular tab of settings. Clear? So this was about creating an email ID and sending, receiving and composing emails in gmail.com. What you did till now is accessed your email through the browser, right? So you are directly accessing the email on the server of Google. And every email will have a limited capacity of the inbox. For instance, Gmail gives a 15 GB of capacity. Right now it shows a 45% of 15 GB used. So what if you want to save your emails even after the inbox space is full? So now for that you are using email management softwares like Outlook. So let me now come to configuring your email on Outlook. So how to open Outlook? Very simple. Go to the search bar, type Outlook, or you can also go to start button, search for all programs, go to Microsoft Office package. There you can select Outlook. So right now what I did is I directly went to search bar, typed Outlook, and I'll click on the particular software. Okay, what happens when you are opening Outlook for the first time is it will ask you to configure an email right in the beginning. But in my case, I have actually used Outlook earlier also, and I had configured my Gmail email ID in Outlook. So now what it is doing, it is, okay, let it open. So it is going to the inbox of my already configured email ID. Alright, so this is how it looks. It is asking me for a password, and the reason being I have changed my Gmail password and I have not updated it. If you see, the last received email is of 22/7/2009. After that I have not received any emails. I have not basically synced my Outlook with my Gmail. In order to configure your Gmail ID in Outlook, just go to Tools, Account Settings. Now here you can see that my email ID is configured. If it is a new email ID, you can click on New. Let the selection be on Microsoft Exchange, POP3, IMAP or HTTP. Just click on Next. Okay, here you can give your full name, email address, password which you have given in Gmail, retype the same password and click next and finish. Now this will ensure that your account is created in Outlook or configured in Outlook, and then next time when you open the Outlook, it will bring you to the inbox like this. So once you do this, how to access the emails? If you just click on send receive, you will basically receive. Right now it will not, because I have not updated my password. Otherwise it will receive all the emails, and unread will be seen something like this, read will be something like this. You can just click on it. The preview is shown on the right. You can see a lot of things like whom has it come from, what is the subject, when was it received, size of the email, etc. If something is important, you can just flag it. All the flagged mails can be sorted by clicking on this, right? If you want to sort by received, anything can be done in Outlook. So if you want to create a new email, just click on new. The procedure remains the same. Just click on new. It will open a new window. Type the email ID to whom you want to send, CC, BCC, etc. Subject you will type the body, and just click on send. So if you have configured multiple emails, in the send you will also be asked from which account you want to send it. So there are many different options like attaching a file, marking as important, a lot of stuff. You can also do spelling and grammar check, and finally send your email. So here again there are multiple folders: inbox, junk mail, outbox. Outbox is the place where the email will be stored before sending. Once you have created and clicked on send, it will be in outbox for a little bit of time, and then it will be moved to your sent items. If you click on sent, all the sent mails from Outlook will be saved in this particular folder. You can even create more folders. Say for example, I want to create a folder by name Shoaib and send all those emails to that particular folder. You can do that as well, right? So there are many options which you can use in Outlook. You can configure any of your emails in Outlook and use this particular options. Hope Outlook was also clear. So I'll just go back to my session plan. So in this session we were supposed to discuss about creating an email account, email software. We actually discussed about Outlook. Composing an email, we discussed both composing an email in the server as well as on Outlook, sending and receiving email in both, and email management. You can manage your emails by creating folders or marking as important, sorting it, many different ways, right? So we discussed all the basics related to email and its management. See you all in the next session.
Congratulations on completing this online course.
What next? 1. Implement the learnings of this course in your personal and professional life. 2. Like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel. 3. If you want to get certified, please do email us your interest.
In order to get certified, you need to complete the quiz and the exercise or case study as explained in the course. Please note that the price for e-certificate is Rs 399 and for hard copy certificate is Rs 699 plus GST.
The price is to cover our expenses of course creation and certification. Once you email us your interest, invoice will be sent to you. Post payment, receipt and the link for quiz will be sent. Post successful completion, certificate will be issued to you.
Getting the certificate as shown in the course is purely your choice. Thank you for choosing Arun's Academy for your learning needs. If you have any questions, clarifications, or in case of training requirements, please feel free to contact us. Please do write your feedback regarding the course.
We at Arun's Academy wish you all the very best. Keep learning and keep growing.